Hi there, my name is Mr. Pete and I am a 4th grade teacher currently reading The Lemonade Crime, Book 2 of a wonderful series of books called the Lemonade War series. And we are currently in Chapter 6 called Impartial. Quick shout out goes to one of my students, Chase Swain. You've been asking me to do this for a while, and I've finally gotten to a point where I can do that. Chase Swain, keep on reading, keep on leaving awesome comments connected to the book. Stay focused, my friend. And that goes to all of you. If you want shout outs, just let me know. Make sure you're doing your work. And if you are outside of my classroom, just let me know what you're working on and why you're reading this book, and I will give you a shout out as well. Make sure if you're in my classroom, you write setting at the top and you are noting the setting shifts throughout this chapter. They're so important in this book, knowing where we're at and when we're at as we head towards the trial. Chapter 6, we already know, is called Impartial. This coming off of Jesse steamrolling into school with Megan and blaming Scott for stealing the $208. Again, Megan doesn't know that her money was stolen. We'll see if she has figured it out yet. Impartial. Adjective. Treating everyone the same, not taking sides in an argument. This is an Evan chapter, all right? Who should be impartial and who's going to be impartial? Think about the people that we know, the characters. Think about just the person who needs to be impartial and maybe some people who will be impartial just because of who they are. Also remember that Evan and Jesse, we don't know if they see eye to eye on this because Jesse just did this without really talking to Evan. We know Evan blamed him just like Jesse did, but is he mad at her? At recess, Jesse didn't waste any time. Evan watched as she pulled index cards one by one out of a big envelope. All the 4th graders crowded around. You're the plaintiff. Highlight, vocab word. Plaintiff is the person who is the victim, the person who something happened to. The plaintiff is Evan in this case. She said to Evan and handed him a green index card that said plaintiff on it. That means you're the victim of the crime. Evan studied the card, then stuck it in his back pocket. A kid's court sounded like a crazy idea to him, a crazy Jesse idea, but he was used to those. And this one might get him a new Xbox 2020, not to mention the satisfaction of proving Scott's guilt in front of everybody. For that, he was willing to give it a try. Highlight satisfaction, vocab word. Satisfaction means you feel good about something. You're satisfied that it happened. So you can see Evan's sort of just along for the ride. He could get that Xbox, so he's going to go with it. What level does that put him? I'm Evan's lawyer, said Jesse, and she gave herself a purple index card that said lawyer for the plaintiff. Then she turned to Scott. You're the defendant, highlight vocab word, which means you're the one who's on trial. So the defendant is the one who did the crime. She gave him a yellow index card that said defendant on it. Then she started to hand out 5 orange index cards. Hey, shouted Scott, don't I get a lawyer? Hold on, you'll get one in a minute, said Jesse sharply. She continued handing out cards. I want Ryan, said Scott. Sorry, said Ryan, holding up an orange card. I'm a witness, highlight vocab word. Of course, a witness is someone who has seen the crime. Then I want Paul. He's a witness too, said Jesse, handing Paul the last orange card. Everyone who was at Jack's house on the day of the crime is a witness. Well, then who's going to be my lawyer? Asked Scott, crumpling his defendant card. Jesse ignored his question. She held up a purple card. Megan, you're on the jury, she said. Evan's heart jumped. There was one vote he could count on. We still don't know if she knows or if she's putting this together. It's a weird statement to make by Jacqueline Davies, by Evan in this book. When's the trial? Said Megan. After school, said Jesse, on Friday. Megan shook her head. I think we're going away this weekend. You can't miss the trial, said Jesse. Evan wanted to shout the same thing, but he kept his mouth shut. I'll talk to my mom, said Megan. Maybe we can leave later, but you'd better give this card to somebody else. She handed the purple card back to Jesse. Oh, all right, said Jesse, sounding disappointed. Take one of these. She handed Megan a white card that said audience on it. It only took Jesse another minute to hand out the 12 jury cards and the rest of the audience cards. All the audience members were girls because all the witnesses were boys, and the jury, as Jesse explained to everyone, had to be 50-50. Evan looked around. It was weird the way all the kids were going along with Jesse's idea. Didn't they know this was all fake? And how did Jesse know all this legal stuff? How did she always know things he didn't know? So here we go. Jesse has set up literally an entire trial, and Evan is just sort of dumbfounded. Also take into account here, Jesse's talking to all the fourth graders doing this. Jessie rounded up the 6 girls who held white audience cards. Then she turned to Scott. You can pick anybody from the audience to be your lawyer. Technically, we don't even need the audience. No offense, said Jessie, turning to the girls. I don't want a girl lawyer, said Scott. Suit yourself, said Jessie, shrugging. But don't come back and complain you weren't offered legal counsel. Legal counsel's a lawyer. A bunch of girls, said Scott. Some offer. I'll be my own lawyer. I'll defend myself. He turned to Jessie. And I'll beat you at it too, he said. That was just like Scott, thought Evan. Always thinking he was the best. Always the kid who had the best stuff. Who took the best vacations. Who had everything. Good, said Jessie. Defend yourself. There was just one more index card in her envelope. Evan watched as she pulled it out slowly. The card was red. It had one word written on it. What's the one job in a trial that hasn't been given yet? Jessie looked around like she was making a very important decision, but Evan knew she'd already decided who would get that red card. Jessie never left anything until the last minute. The judge is going to be David Kerkorian. There was dead silence. Then Paul shouted out, Are you kidding me? He can't be the judge, said Ryan. He collects human bones. I do not, said David, turning bright red, but stepping up to Jessie and taking the card out of her hand. Then everyone started talking at once. David, meanwhile, held up the red card and shouted, Ha ha, I'm the judge! I'm the judge! They made so much noise, the duty teacher came over to see what was going on with class 4-0. That quieted everyone down. Nobody wanted the duty teacher getting involved. One of the unspoken rules on the playground was, never tell the duty teacher what's really going on. Sort of like in the Lemonade War, how they would never tell Mom. Why him, asked Paul after the duty teacher walked away. Because he's the only one in the whole class who's impartial, vocab word, said Jessie. He's not friends with Evan or Scott. He'll be fair. He won't play favorites. And that's the most important thing about a judge. A judge has to treat everyone the same. David held up the red card in one hand and placed the other one over his heart. I solemnly swear that I'll be a fair judge, he said. Solemnly. Highlight. Vocab word. Almost sadly. Very formal. I'll be a fair judge. Good, said Jessie. But Evan couldn't believe it. Who was going to listen to a kid like David Kerkorian? For Evan, the day went downhill from there. What does that mean, the day went downhill? That's an idiom. Didn't really go downhill. But what does that mean? Did it get better? Did it get worse? Let's find out. All afternoon in class, there's a setting change. They worked on things that Evan hated. Math fact drills, spelling rules, and writer's workshop. Then Mrs. Overton discovered that one of the jump ropes was missing from the 4-0 milk crate, and that was Evan's fault because he was equipment manager. Writing workshop would be awesome if you had a good writing teacher. But the thing that really slam dunked the day right into the garbage can, the thing that changed it from a crummy day into absolutely one of the top 10 worst days of his life, happened after school. Evan was strapping on his bike helmet when Adam walked up to him at the rack and pulled out his bike. You want to come over? Asked Evan. So again, a setting change. We're at the bike rack now. And he's talking to Adam. Can't, said Adam. I promised my mom I'd help her get the house ready for Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year for the Jewish people. This is the time of year when most Jews show up for services, or at least more than usual. In big cities, you sometimes even need tickets. The place gets pretty crowded. To prepare, during the days before the holiday, people make amends and ask forgiveness from their family and friends, and then the day arrives. We learn, on this day you are to afflict your soul, and Yom Kippur makes atonement for you and all Jewish people. So, how do you afflict your soul? famously by fasting from food and drink. Yom Kippur is a time for relationship maintenance, requiring Jews to seek out reconciliation with others, with themselves, and with God. The imagery of the holiday is of gates, the gates of prayer, of soul-searching, and of forgiveness. The shofar is sounded in a dramatic closing ceremony. With the final blast, the ups and downs of a really long day come to a full stop. It's chow time. Time to eat as Jews gather together for break the fast. Not breakfast, because it's at night.
Is that today? Asked Evan, clicking the buckle under his chin. It starts Friday night, but my mom wants me to clean up my room today and do some other stuff too. Evan knew that Yom Kippur is a holiday where the grown-ups don't eat all day. It was supposed to help them think about their sins, but Evan couldn't figure that out. When he was hungry, he couldn't think about anything except what he was going to eat next. You want to come to the breakfast party? Asked Adam. The Goldbergs always ate a big meal at sunset when the holiday fast was over. Sure, said Evan. He'd been to lots of Friday night dinners at Adam's and Paul's houses. He liked the candles and even the prayers he didn't understand, but mostly he liked the food. Challah bread, roasted chicken, and applesauce cake. Are you going to go the whole day without eating this year? Asked Evan. Last year, Adam had bragged that he was going to fast next year for Yom Kippur. Adam shrugged. I might try. Then he looked down at his bike and bounced the front wheel a couple of times on the hard blacktop. Look, there's something I've been meaning to say to you. You remember how over the summer, Paul and Kevin and me, we ditched you in the woods that time? Yeah, said Evan, wondering why Adam was bringing up something that had happened months ago. Evan had been really mad back then, but now it was over. Well, I'm really sorry, and I hope you'll forgive me. Evan looked confused. Adam shrugged. Dude, it's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. You have to go around and ask people to forgive your sins. Evan laughed. You're such an idiot. He shoved Adam. Adam grinned, faked like he was going to throw a punch, then got on his bike and rode away. Evan was just about to push off on his bike when he saw Ryan and Paul walking together toward the path. He rode across the blacktop and crossed in front of them right before they came to the fence. Before Evan could say anything, Paul slung his arm around him, nearly knocking him off his bike. Hey, Evan, I totally owe you one. Thanks for taking the blame. You know, when Charlie got off his leash. Yeah, sure, no big deal, said Evan, shrugging. Evan and Paul did that all the time for each other, swapping the blame so they wouldn't get in trouble with their own parents. Parents always went way easier on other people's kids than they did on their own. That seems like a random thing to say. I would put a star next to that. It reminds me a little bit of the fruit flies from Lemonade War. You want to come over? Evan said to Paul and Ryan, balancing on his bike without pedaling. Paul shook his head. No, we're going to Scott's. Evan slammed his feet to the ground and stared at the two of them. He said we could try out the 2020, said Ryan. It's supposed to be awesome. You should come too.
No! 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 No!
What? No!
No!
No. No, no.
No, 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 no.
Evan felt like he'd been sucker punched. Simile. No way, he shouted. He stared at Paul and then Ryan with an expression that said, Traitor! But neither one of them said anything in return. Finally, Evan said quietly, I can't believe you're going over to his house. Paul shrugged. He didn't do anything to us. Some friend you are, said Evan. Come on, Evan, said Paul. You don't even know for sure that he took the money. I know, said Evan. You should come, said Ryan. Everyone's going over there after school. Remember, Evan said things went downhill. Remember, Evan said things were going to get worse. Now everyone is going to Scott's, except for Evan. A picture came into Evan's mind of the whole fourth grade class marching over to Scott's house, all his friends, and where would he be? He'd be at home, with his little sister. Who? He asked. Everyone? Who? All the guys, said Paul. You know, me and Ryan and Jack and Kevin, all the guys. Not Adam, said Evan, thinking to himself that at least he had one friend who was loyal. Well, he's got to help his mother with some stuff, said Ryan. But then he's coming over after that, like in an hour. Evan shook his head in disbelief. Highlight, vocab word. So he's shaking his head because disbelief. Dis, prefix, can't, believe, can't believe. His best friend, stabbing him in the back. Idiom. He yanked his handlebars away from Paul and Ryan and rode off without saying another word. All the witnesses are hanging out with Scott to play with that 2020. All right, so we had a lot of setting changes there. So make sure you know where we're at throughout the story. It's after school, we know that. And we are finding out that all of his friends are hanging out with Scott Spencer. To those of you that are reading in the classroom, please make sure you are taking notes. I will be checking. To those of you that aren't a part of my classroom, please make sure you subscribe. I'm going to continue this series all the way through to its end. And I am also going to be reading lots of other books, of which I already have read, including the one and only Ivan, the one and only Bob, and several others. So please, please, please subscribe, click the bell, do all those wonderful things that you do to make sure you don't miss a thing. To everyone else, thank you so much. Our next chapter, chapter 7, is called Due Diligence. What does that mean? Where are we headed next? We obviously had an Evan chapter, which makes me believe this is a Jesse chapter. Whew, she sure is a busy little girl. What's coming next? Who knows? But I will see you on the next page. Peace.